you right now, Sir Richard Branson. How the hell are you?
I'm very well.
Say hello. Is it a little bit weird when you're sitting on a stage, 5,000, 6,000 people, 7,000 people in the room having a nice personal little conversation?
It's a great pleasure that everyone's turned up tonight, so looking forward to talking to you all and meeting you.
I get the impression that people have been waiting for this just for a little while. Let me go back a little bit if I can, because I noticed that we know a lot about you in certain parts of your life, but I don't know a lot about the beginning section. Tell me about childhood. What are your earliest memories?
Very happy childhood. I was brought up in the countryside. Very fortunately had two loving parents and still do. Lots of love and used to climb trees and rescue cats and the kinds of things you did as a kid.
What did you dream about?
I think what most people dream about is wanting to change the world. I think from quite a young age, I dreamt about that, and now you get into a position where maybe you can make a difference and try to fulfill those dreams.
So much of what we know about you is based around passions you had. What were they back then? What were the things back then as a young boy that made you excited?
As a young boy, it was pretty well all to do with sport. I loved all aspects of sport. I was pretty hopeless at school. I was dyslexic, so I couldn't understand what the teachers were talking about. And it was only when I damaged my knee playing football that I thought, I might leave school and do something else.
Was that a big call to leave school?
Sorry, I was going to get some water.
You do that.
Well, I had to walk my father around the garden quite a few times before I finally got him to agree, because I was 15 years old. But I was lucky. I mean, my dad, in the end, said, at least you know what you want to do. He said that when he was 22 and he was leaving university, he didn't know what he wanted to do. And the Vietnamese War was raging. Young people, including myself, felt the war was a dreadful war. And I wanted to leave school to start a magazine to campaign against the war. And I think the challenge was because I didn't have any.
If you're wondering why there's a little bit of noise, it's because I just secretly put this photograph up. If you look ahead, you'll see.
All right.
Tell me about that. What's going on in that young man's head there? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, vaguely. I was by then I'd left school. I was about 17 years old, and was I don't know, trying to persuade somebody to let me go and interview them. You once interviewed cannibals, didn't you?
I did interview cannibals.
Were you a bit worried about interviewing cannibals?
I've remained in journalism. You've gone on to some would say bigger and better things.
I think the great thing about being a journalist, which is why I thoroughly enjoyed my first few years of editing a magazine, is you're out learning all the time. You're meeting new people. It's a fascinating job.
And we'll come to your people skills in a moment, but let me ask you about that time of your life. It was only about a year after that you started your first charity. That's a big thing for someone to do in their teens.
Yeah, I mean, most of the things I do from personal experiences or bad personal experiences, and as a young person, 16, 17, young people have problems. And having a student magazine, we soon realised that young people have a lot of problems. And they're the kinds of problems they don't necessarily want to talk to their parents about, or they don't necessarily want to talk to their doctors about. So, we set up a student advisory centre to help young people who had problems, and it could have been everything ranging from somebody having venereal disease to somebody who was pregnant to...
But you had that from the very beginning, didn't you? I mean, it wasn't just about making money, it was also about doing good.
Yeah, I think we were in a position we were in a position to do good, and we fortunately chose to do that.
I just reminded Sir Richard just before we came out here that I actually met him about 7 or 8 years ago. I was involved with a homeless shelter in King's Cross, and I called up Virgin Atlantic to see if they would donate overnight kits, the razors and the toothbrush and toothpaste, and they did. Qantas did. A huge box. just for the sake of being honest, I'm not bagging Qantas, but I called Qantas first, and they said, we don't do that sort of thing anymore, and someone said, you should ring Virgin. And so you provided that. 6 months later, I received a phone call from someone from the company, and they said, Sir Richard's been asked to walk through a wall of fire by American Rosso for a radio promotion. He'll give $5,000 to a charity of his choice. He's going to give it to the homeless shelter in King's Cross. American Rosso said, can you throw in another $2,000? He did. We went from having no bank account to having to set up a bank account and having $7,000 in it, and there's still some money in that bank account today, believe it or not. Tell us a little bit about the charitable initiatives you have at the moment. Let's talk about Australia for the moment, or worldwide, you tell me. What are you most proud of?
I suspect the thing we're most proud of is something called the Elders. It came about when it looked inevitable that Britain and America and Australia were going to invade Iraq. I thought it was a mistake, and we were trying to think if there was a way of avoiding the war. And Idi Amin had once ruled in Uganda, and some elders had persuaded him to step down and go and live the rest of his life in Saudi Arabia, and Uganda became a democratically elected country and has run very well ever since. So I talked to Nelson Mandela and Kofi Annan and asked if they would consider going to see Saddam Hussein and trying to persuade him to step down. And we arranged a house for him to go and live in Libya. And the very day that they were due to take off from South Africa, the bombing started, so they never actually got there. But anyway, it sparked an idea, and that was maybe we could get together the 12 most respected women and men in the world, led by Nelson Mandela and his wife Graça Machel, and that those elders could use their moral authority to go into conflict regions and try to resolve conflicts. And over the last 2 years, they've managed to stop a major conflict developing in Kenya. They've helped get the coalition government formed in Zimbabwe. They're working on the Palestine-Israel problem and so on. So, I think that's the most likely.